I'm here with Gilius ahead of his game today. Now, first off, Gilius, I just wanted to have a little chat with you. And I obviously cast a lot of your games back in the day, and now you're back in this in the LCS. So now that you're with Elements, do you think this is like the team that you found that you've really been fitting in with? This is your team?
I'm not sure if it's like the perfect team for me, but it's a really good opportunity for me to play a full season of LCS and prove myself. So yeah.
Okay, that's super cool. I kind of want to touch on like solo queue though, because it's been a while since you've been like a pure solo queue jungler versus competitive play. But what do you think are like the main differences moving to like the big stage and playing with like a competitive team?
In solo queue, it's like not much communication, so you need to have a really good decision making and have good mechanics, because sometimes you don't get backup and you just gotta outplay the enemy. On stage, it's really different. Everyone is communicating a lot, and if you have no backup, you will die. So basically, you need to be able to communicate really well with all of your teammates to do good plays.
Communication and timing and being an aggressive jungler, would you say that's kind of your play style? What are you trying to achieve when you're getting into like the early game and the mid game? What are your objectives?
I try to play really aggressive, go into the enemy jungle, spot the enemy jungler, so my lanes can play aggressive, because they can't be ganked when I see the enemy jungler. And yeah, just try to provide a lot of pressure for my team and try to win my lanes. Yeah.
Okay, so you're a pressure jungler, but maybe looking at some of the other junglers in the LCS, like I know Amazing was very vocal about like the early game should be very fast and loose. What do you think about the other junglers in LCS, maybe the strengths and weaknesses?
I think there's a lot of junglers that don't really know how to play aggressive. They are playing really like scared, which means I can basically gank everywhere I want. Then there's like junglers like Shook, Amazing, Jankos. They will instantly punish you if you play scared on the map and abuse you. So yeah, it's a huge difference between like good junglers and bad junglers.
That's actually really cool to hear. So I want to take a step back, because I know a lot of people at home like will be junglers themselves. So do you have any tips that you've learned from competitive play? Any like tips and tricks that you can teach someone out there?
Tips and tricks. Just try to play like early aggression junglers like Lee Sin, Nidalee, Rek'Sai. Like these champions have really good clears early and can make early game plays. In solo queue, it's really snowbally. If you get your lanes ahead, the enemies will like be upset and tilt, so it's much easier to win. So yeah, just don't play like farm junglers like, I don't know, Shyvana or something. That's not that good for solo queue.
Okay, so just be aggressive. Well, thank you very much for sitting down and taking the time to talk to me, and good luck on your game later today.
Let's find out how he does. Welcome back. I'm Quickshot, joined by James Stress O'Leary. And before we get into the matchup at hand, we'd like to shine a light on the match of the week over in Brazil's CB LOL.
Oh, yes, we would. On Sunday, February 14th, Keith Stars are going to face Esports in a rematch of last year's Spring Finals. The action gets underway at 6 p.m. Central European Time. That's 9 a.m. Pacific. So be sure to mark your calendars. Mine is marked, unfortunately not for Valentine's Day, just for a day of solo queue and playing on my own in my apartment.
I've got such a tough choice. I don't know if I should be kissing Deficio or giving Crepo more roses. I'll have to figure that out later.
Why am I the only color caster that doesn't get your love, Trevor?
Back to the stage here in Berlin. It's all about Elements and Roccat. They're setting up on the blue side. It is Elements. Let's take a look at their roster. Steve, Gilius, Iker, Mr. Al, Sprottle, and their coach, Nif.
Well, roses are normally red, but this time it's Roccat on the red side, Freddy122 in the top lane, Iowax in the jungle, Betsy in the mid lane, Tabs as AD carry. His support is Extinct, and their coach is I'm So Fresh.
And of course, let's talk about the matchup a little bit before we get to picks and bans. I want to start with Elements. They lost yesterday to Fnatic, and this is the team that is not really showing a lot of growth. They're struggling with a lot of the basics, and we're seeing them perform the same mistakes really over and over. And they were very vocal about proving themselves on the stage to all their competitors.
They were, and they were also very open about playing a whole lot of dynamic queue with themselves. And an example of, situation that didn't quite go so well for them was that lane swap that they tried to execute. They practice so much in these setups in dynamic queue where you're not really lane swapping because the coordination of the opponents isn't there as well. And Elements come in and their lane swap just wasn't a whole lot of strength for them.
No, it really wasn't. Now, similar could be said for Roccat. They've had moments of brilliance. and you wouldn't actually expect them to be a team with a 1-8 record. They lost to Giants yesterday, meaning they've now lost 8 games back-to-back. They did beat Vitality, day 1, game 1.
Yeah, it's just crazy, because yesterday's game against Giants was a really rough game. Like, just everything about that game was messy, uncoordinated from both teams.
It really, really was, and it ended up a heartbreaking loss because Roccat were ahead for so much of that game. All right, we're into picks and bans. These are 2 teams that are really desperate and hungry for wins. In the bottom half of the table, Rise, Gangplank taken away, Kalista out, so Lucian, Corki, Poppy, you know, those power picks that we're seeing time and time again. Where do you think the priority lies?
Well, it's funny because Roccat are pretty much the only team that people are banning Rise against still, and it's just because Betsy is having a decent time in the mid lane. We've had a few good games from him, but you look at this pick and ban phase, and there are still a lot of high priority picks still available. Corki is still up, Poppy is still up, the Alistair is now not available, as that is the final ban coming out from Roccat. Lucian is up, so now we're in the situation, is it the Corki trade for the flex pick first, or do you go for that safe bottom lane? Elements will prioritize their bot lane.
Well, that's a good pick, I feel, for Mr. Rolls. He's been good, but he's not been game-changing for Elements this split. And denying a top-tier pick maybe from Tabs, or one of them,
I mean, that's
helpful.
That's the real confusion about Elements, because they were at a point where they were at 3-1. Mr. Rales got MVP, Sprattle was on the OP5 list on week 2, and then they started facing tougher opponents. And the Elements that we saw weeks 1 and 2 just did not appear, and they've just gone loss after loss after loss, and they're at 3-6 now. It's not the same team that we looked at the end of week 1 and 2 and we're like, wow, okay, Elements are actually surprising us.
Yeah, and for Elements, luckily now the split is reset. So they beat the teams below them, they lost the teams above them, and now Elements are playing a squad that is quite far away. Roccat struggled yesterday, they lost to Giants, and they've now locked in the Corki-Brown combo.
One thing Roccat will have is the ability to counterpick, obviously being on the red side. The key thing on this one is Ike is a player who is typically for Elements been playing control mages. He's played a lot of Victor, Morgana. He has had that game on Rise that he did okay on. But it means that Roccat won't really get that favorable a matchup unless they got something that's hidden up their sleeves. They may look to give Freddy the better matchup in the top lane. Now they can see the Poppy's being locked in. That kind of zones away the option that we've seen. In fact, looking at it, they could do the Quinn that Freddy's been playing.
Oh, I hope not, because he doesn't really know how to split push on that champion.
Right, but this is a matchup that is favorable for Freddy if he looks to go for it. Now, as you alluded to, his performance yesterday on the Quinn wasn't so great. So this is kind of one of those situations for Elements where they could be about to make a big mistake if they're banking on Freddy not being able to perform quite as well.
Well, let's see what they decide to lock in. Freddy's got the options to counterpick. In the last few seconds, secure most likely this Kindred for Airwax. Rek'Sai's off the table, as is Nidalee. Elise is there, but Kindred has been played twice already and is somewhat of a comfort pick here for Airwax, and it will get locked in. The Lulu to follow. So Betsy's played that once. We've not seen it in Freddy's hands. I don't associate it with Freddy, but it could go either way.
So much flex here, though. You've got the Corki could be mid, the Lulu could be mid, the Kindred could be AD carry, the Corki could be the AD carry. There is so much. Could even be in a situation, I highly doubt this, by the way, but we could even have a Lulu top lane that we haven't seen all that much of recently. So Elements really are kind of trying to piece together Rockat's composition. At this point, for the likes of Roccat, having Betsy on that Lulu, I wonder, he has been the one player that Roccat have been able to get behind. Is this enough presence coming from their middle lane? That's kind of a problem in my mind right now.
I do see Elements lock in their final champions. It is Elise plus Victor. And with all of the disengage and the support of Peel and abilities here, Kindred, Lulu, Janna, wave clear for days, we could be in for a long one.
Well, we just heard Gilius talk about early game junglers being aggressive. Elise will do that. The problem is with a Kindred matchup, as always with Elise, it's if you hit the cocoon, you can go aggressive. If you miss that cocoon, you better back away because Kindred is going to trade a whole lot of damage back into you. So Airwax and Gilius could have an explosive start to the game, but as you said, I wonder whether we'll tend towards a slower, more passive game from these teams.
And I also feel unless everybody's perfectly positioned, Wild Growth, Lamb's Respite, Monsoon, you've got all these tools to help deal, at least with some of the catches, but obviously not an absolute all-in.
So, do Roccat go for the Quinn here and look for the split push? They will have a Lulu as well to kind of empower the Quinn later into the game. Still flex options. Wow, okay, Trundle picked up at this point. That is a...
top.
I mean, yeah, top lane, if it goes up there. Normally a straight-up tank shredder with that subjugate. This is a matchup I've actually seen kind of backfire horribly. We've seen this matchup, I believe, in Challenger in week 1. I have to stretch back in my mind. Trundle obviously gives Poppy extra terrain to utilize, but at the same time, you are able to disrupt very heavily with that Trundle in the top lane. That's a really kind of not weird, not bad pick by Freddy, but not one that I was expecting in this situation.
I think the theoretical approach of that pillar of ice, the disruption that it can give both a Poppy, a Victor, a Lucian, and a frontline when combined with Braum, I think there's potential, but elements have to be on the same page. I do like the pick for Freddy, because yesterday he did not split push.
Yes.
He played Quinn, and he still stuck with his team, still looked for those team fights. He'll have more of an impact on this Trundle.
And especially with the likes of Kindred already locked in, you've already got a second AD carry threat here, but at this point, the compositions have been locked in. Show your support on Twitter, whoever you think has the better composition or whoever you want to win. Hashtag EL win or hashtag ROC win. And we'll get to that and see the fan vote as we get later into this game. But these are some kind of weird comps on the side of Roccat.
Yeah, a slightly different approach to the game. But when you are struggling, when you are 1-8, maybe you do have to do something a little different. We've heard the analysts there talking about how Fnatic tried to enforce the meta. Let's see if Roccat can invent some of their own. The crowd is hyped for our penultimate game of Week 5. The Elements logo flying high on the left, facing off against the Roccat flag. Lit up on the rift. Trollolololol, lolol, is what Freddy will be singing all day.
Well, there's clearly some fans of, maybe some traditional sports. We got a clacker in here today as well. I was a little bit confused. Thought someone was maybe, repairing a car wheel or something, trying to turn that wrench. But no, it's not the right place to be doing that.
Is that what it's
in the
called?
LCS studio. I don't know.
It's clacker?
It probably. That's the kind of noise.
Could I go into a shop and be like, hey, I'd like to buy a clacker?
Look, let me put it this way. If you're British, you can use any word to describe anything, and somebody somewhere will understand what you mean.
I'm not quite sure that's the truth, but we'll see how it works out. Defensive starts here, Stress. Everyone lined up across the river, splashing some water at one another. And no indication of a lane swap just yet. You have to feel that this Corki Braum lane is going to get a little bit poked out maybe by the Lucian early until Tabs gets access to that Rocket Barrage. Thunderlords still on the side there for both Betsy and Tabs.
Yeah, and one of the masteries to look at for the top laners as well. Obviously, Grasp of the Undying. We've seen so much of it. That's another thing that will synergize fairly well with this Trundle. Of course, loves to trade 1 versus 1. Will be able to drop his W, be able to get that extra healing and regeneration, Frozen Domain. So that kind of enhances his kit. Seen a lot of different top laners come from that. So now I'm wondering how Steve and Freddy will trade back and forth on that, but we can see Elements, their duo lane, have gone all the way into the deep jungle at this point to start it off. Sprattle's going to come down and try and disrupt Freddy and Airwax, but has to be careful. We've seen these backfire. Yesterday, Kasing was forced to flash out on Thresh when he tried to do a move like that.
And the lane swap did happen. A little later than I was anticipating, so the map has now been cut in half. Elements declaring control. The northern half, you can see Gilius already moving into the jungle with Steve. They're going to hold hands. Quadra teleports this game. Both solo laners on both teams running those TPs. So I want to see how those are going to impact the dives when they eventually start happening.
Bit of a difference on this lane swap from Elements to the most that we'll see in the LCS in general. Elements actually started on their strong side and then went straight into the enemy jungle and up to the top lane. Rather than starting on the bottom side, you could see Extinct from Roccat was waiting, trying to get the information of when Elements were coming to red buff. Didn't actually get it, and what it means is Elements were slightly faster on the push here. You can see the rest of Roccat weren't quite there in time, and they are behind on the push itself onto the tower. Elements significantly further ahead on the damage done right now. It's all from that adaptation.
Let's see what they can do, because yesterday in the lane swap versus Fnatic, they were unable to get any real semblance of control, and it fell apart very, very quickly. Yesterday, Fnatic pushed Elements all the way to the inner turret. So tower will fall in favor of Elements and Steve, plus 345. We'll catch a glimpse down bottom. About 5 to 10 seconds ahead of Roccat. And already you can see the duo lane for Elements has recalled and going to position themselves down.
And you can see Airwax at the same time, obviously going in, reading that they weren't on the red buff, can take it away, means that Roccat will clear out that lower side jungle and establish some vision control in the Elements lower side jungle. So right now, depends. Elements have put their duo lane into the bottom lane, sent Poppy up top, or kept Poppy up top. Steve didn't recall yet, no presence or no threat in that lane to force him away. But this isn't the best situation for Steve right now, because he's going to be forced to recall very shortly as soon as Corki arrives. There is a ward to spot Corki out, so shouldn't actually die. But then Steve has to make the decision. Does he return to the top lane and maybe not get a whole lot of farm? Actually, Steve's stuck around here. Look at the way Braum's pathing up through the river. Steve way overstayed. I wonder whether that ward actually died. It's timed out now.
Winter's Bite, Exhaust as well. A Valk forward. Airwax has flash, but he's not on the same page. Wastes his flash, trying to follow. Steve tabs it, backed away, and opts to farm instead.
That ward did spot out Tabs as well, so Steve was just banking on the fact that it was only Corki that was coming top. That flash now not going to be available. Not the biggest thing that's going to get punished unless they can get back onto Steve again if he overextends, but what it does mean is it gives Roccat the ability to push up to that tower. Elements are doing the same in the bottom lane. John Illusion is going to push towers pretty quickly, just in general.
But luckily for Roccat, they've got a 4-man stack pushing top.
Yeah.
So it's 2 members of Elements in the bottom lane, 4 members of Roccat in the top lane. And we've got PvE League of Legends for the first couple of minutes here, Stress.
Yeah, we have. One thing that, as this game goes on further, could be problematic for Elements is whenever you're running Lucian Janna, it means you don't have any primary engage coming for your support, you're running a disengaged support. It means that somebody else has to engage for you, which Steve theoretically can do. He obviously is on the Poppy, can get that charge in, utilize the ultimate as well. Gilius does have pick potential, but it's all fairly difficult engage to get off. It's not the likes of an Alistair that we've seen from the support role. We've seen a lot of Malphite the last couple of days. So Elements have to pick and choose their fights. It can be very difficult to balance it. Otherwise, they have to just back away, reset, and utilize their composition in slightly different ways, looking at maybe multi-lane control.
Luckily for Elements, they have a lot of tools to back away and reset.
Yes. Yeah.
Janna, Victor, defensive gravity fields. And you know, if all else fails, just put down the verdict. Steve will say, get out of here. So there are tools there. For Roccat, though, I think they do have some tools. Freddy, if he does go a DPS item, should be able to do relatively well in playing the side lane game with some split push pressure down. We've seen it happen multiple times when Trundle was played top.
Yeah, that's the thing is, like, Trundle is so deceptive when it comes to his ability to 1v1. Subjugate, once he uses it, just means he's just almost always going to win a trade. The Trundle Poppy matchup isn't one I've got a massive amount of experience in competitive seeing it, so I'm trying to like look at where the tipping point is in this matchup for Freddy, but it's kind of almost inevitable that he is going to be able to take on Steve later into this game. The problem for him right now is Steve is up on experience, Steve is up on farm. Right now the game is just going better for Steve, regardless of having his flash burned earlier.
And it actually all stems back to those early decisions from Elements in the lane swap. They were just a couple steps ahead. It gave Steve just a few extra minutes in a lane, and despite being ganked somewhat awkwardly by Roccat, he's been able to build up this small lead. Freddy now has to deal with Rolls solo, and all the vision in the top quadrant of the jungle means Rolls is basically completely safe.
Yeah, for as long as the rest of Roccat are showing in lanes and not moving through that top side jungle, the only person they have to really keep track of is Airwax on Kindred, who was down in the bottom side. They don't really have a read on where he is right now. That's the only person that could potentially spoil Mr. Ralez's fun here, pushing up towards the turret, but with a new wave joining, Mr. Ralez will reassess the situation, see what he thinks about the bottom side as well. But if Freddy ever does manage to group here with the team as this gets later, you can put down that pillar. It's obviously going to facilitate the Corki. It's been talked about so much. The same with the Braum Q. Just makes all of these skill shots so much easier to land.
See if they're on the same page, because of course for Roccat, technically this is a very fresh duo lane. Extinct coming in, I think 2 weeks ago, through maybe Tabs coming in even more recently. And they seem to be playing better, but when it comes to those bigger team calls and team decisions, Roccat's still trying to find their footing, find their identity is something that has been said a few times about the team. I think it's a fair assessment. Discovering where the strengths and weaknesses lie.
It's very much so. What we see in just the spring split in general is a lot of this feeling out period, because yes, there is championship points on the line. Yes, there's the spot at MSI, but for a lot of the teams that aren't looking right at that #1 spot, there's a lot of kind of figuring out who you are as a team, your team identity. What exactly are you looking for out of the game, your strategy? And for Elements, when we took a look at the jungle gravity this week, for Elements seems to be just, let's get Ike ahead. He seems to be doing very well, and whether it's causation or correlation, you know, 3 minutes, and I believe it's just over 3 minutes on the jungle gravity for Ike being spent in that mid lane from Gilius, and that's pretty high. I believe it's the highest of all mid lane and jungle combos. So that seems to be the Elements identity for right now. I just wonder whether that's going to work for them, because they're only 1 win on the board.
Yeah, unfortunately. We'll see how they bounce back. Luckily for Elements, playing a team that's also struggling, Roccat. And we've got that slower pace. This is somewhat what we were expecting from these team comps. They do want to scale up. They do want to get their items. And it's going to come down to who's going to put some pressure and some vision in their side lanes.
Of course, apologies on that. That, of course, is Roccat.
1 and 8 for Roccat.
Yeah, it's all good. And the jungle gravity point. So that one was butchered by me. Don't worry, it's all good. We'll get to that at some point.
Yeah, and of course those gravity stats are primarily focused on non-lane swap games, where the jungler actually has to decide which lane they want to help out. This time around, it was which tower do we want to knock over, as was the case. 2 towers to 2. And you can see Elements, they go, well, there's 1 more tower outside, Stress. I think we're going to go stand in front of it and siege.
Yeah, this isn't really the kind of gank that you ever want to attempt to see here. With a Janna trying to come out behind the turret, trying to look for the tornado against the Lulu. It's really not going to happen. Lulu, one of the most difficult lanes to actually kill from gank, especially post 6. Level 9, and this is the first time we're really seeing it.
Luckily for Elements, they did get a lot of damage onto that outer turret. Yeah, it's real distracting, dude. Clicking.
It sounds like you ever seen those Western films where they just have that as a sound effect.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, there's the close
Just before their birth.
Oh, okay. I think you just killed headphone users. I'm sorry. Trevor just killed your ears. I'm really sorry.
I was waiting for the showdown. Steve and Freddy
We're not
staring each other in the eyes. And then they walked away. And interestingly, Freddy, thanks to the lane swap, the freeze in that top lane, he's now the one that's actually got a 16-17 CS advantage.
He is right now. And normally you get punished for freezing right now in the current meta game. Normally it results in getting cross-mapped fairly often. Neither team really feels confident enough to push forward, and that is going to become quite a big problem, actually, when you look at these kind of compositions. Is Elements are going to struggle to engage. Roccat need to siege, which means they need to have the ability to kind of 4-1, and they're not getting it.
Nope.
They're building time. They're not at that point yet. They're waiting for Tabs to really get the Triforce, waiting for Freddy to be able to sit in that 1v1 comfortably. They haven't really tested that yet. So for Roccat, it is a waiting game, but it's been a very tempered, very patient game.
Yeah, you could sort of say the same for Elements, right? Victor really wants to get some items, like pollution, etc. So we'll see what's going to be the first testing point, maybe, for these teams. Eric's going to get a stack on that Kindred passive, and Freddy going towards what appears to be the Iceborne Gauntlet as a first item. So I kind of feel like both of these teams are just trying to figure out where a weakness is in their opponent's play, and then they're going to try to exploit it. With only 1 blue trinket and 2 sweepers now for Elements, that's the first change in the trinket approach, actually just equaled by Betsy as well.
Yeah, just equaled. I hope we don't end up in a Fnatic situation from earlier, but Ike maybe caught out here, forced the flash very early.
Oh, there could be a stun coming out. Flashes forward from both Airwax and Extinct. Ike will go down. Extinct and Airwax, they just punish him for being a little too far forward.
Yeah, this time Airwax didn't need Betsy around in that middle lane, unlike as we have seen a lot from Roccat. This time it was just Extinct And Airwax with that Kindred having a lot of damage.
Yeah, a whole lot. Reminder to everybody at home, we're on 6-2. Those Dragon and Baron timers are on break at the moment. And Dragon will be up in about a minute and a half.
I'm going to give it another go, Trevor. Did you know, Trevor?
Okay.
Roccat normally have Airwax middle lane a lot. They actually have the highest jungle gravity with mid and jungle combos out of every team in the EU LCS. Just over 3 minutes.
That is a lot of
Crazy.
time.
You'd never have heard that before.
No,
right?
I really wouldn't have. But
that was time is right.
The interesting thing about that jungle gravity that we started talking about, we're gonna be talking about more. That's tracking from 3 minutes to 15.
Yes.
Right. So it's just really looking at the laning phase. We're looking at why and where does a jungler go, and trying to put some numbers to it. 3 minutes out of 12 within 2,000 range. It is a massive amount of time.
Don't do too much maths. We had a situation yesterday that didn't go so well with maths Suncast.
This one I know is golden.
Okay,
so this
good.
one is golden. Stats Bender gave us the numbers. I didn't really know where I was going to go with that.
No, I didn't know.
I just wanted to say Stats Bender. It's just exciting calling spells and Stats Bender. Avatar ain't got nothing on him. Right, so ARAM in the mid lane again. Outer turret standing. Elements have got decent vision in the blue side jungle of Roccat, and actually some flank opportunities. Betsy steps maybe a little too far forward. A Death Ray and a Siphon Power means Betsy's forced back.
Held his nerve though, still has the ultimate available. Had the read on that, didn't feel like he was dying anytime soon, so I was waiting for that snap reaction. Roccat do have themselves a lead though, mainly off that first blood plus a little bit of farming time, but Elements want to siege up mid.
That has to be the tower. Extinct eats a cocoon. Unbreakable Will comes up and the tower's being forced down. 30% of its hit points, the minion wave slowly being chipped away. Elements, they are making the aggressive move forward, and they are very close to securing that tower. Dragon has just spawned though.
They're close. They forced Betsy away, but it wasn't enough. Betsy didn't even look to teleport to another lane. He just is going to hold that, make sure he's got the global presence around Elements. While they've taken the Dragon, Roccat don't really have too much on the map to do right now. It was shoved up far too far in the top side. Betsy was clearing out the bottom lane, and the rest of Roccat just kind of reposition, purchase some new items, and back themselves away.
We have to actually look at these team comps and say, well, what does Roccat want to do to win here? They kind of want Freddy to split push. They've got decent wave clear between Lulu and Corki. Their siege is okay, but I like some of the threat that Elements can bring because their wave clear and their ability to maybe tower dive with a cocoon and Poppy, etc. It feels like there's more tools for Elements to use, and they are the ones playing in the front foot. They are the ones trying to dictate the pace.
Yeah, they certainly are trying to dictate the pace right now. It is tough though, with this fairly disengaged bot lane from Elements. They will obviously have a lot of presence here and a lot of safety on their carries, but we're finally seeing perhaps the 1v1 come out from Freddy. Freddy landed the pillar there. Does have Extinct to follow up in that top side.
Unfortunately, Betsy wants to play with Mr. Ralls, and you can see in the mini-map that the top lane engages where all the party is. The observers are 100% confident drama's happening here, though, because Gilius is now moving in. The wild growth used very, very early. Blitzalons to slow Gilius down. Ralls is running out of mana, and the cancellation from Freddy or the interrupt. We'll have to find out later. Betsy eats a cocoon. Red buff is ticking from Gilius. The slow for slow. Flash forward. Gilius is trying to sink those Envenom Fangs in, and he does finish up the kill. Elements are on the board.
Yeah, it was the interrupt onto Freddy's teleport there, so he wasn't able to join. And obviously, Betsy didn't have the read on that. That is now even on this, and Betsy was pushing up pretty far there into Mr. Rallis. I think he thought he had enough safety because of how the rest of his team were moving on the map. They'd spotted a whole lot of people on top side, but they didn't have the read on the jungler. There was the block. Results in Betsy not being able to get away Gilius with the minion taxi. Enough to do.
Just a tad early on that little launch, I feel. Yeah, finally got there.
Freddy's gone.
Back to life, and there we go. He is in fact gone. Gilius was looking for Airwax. Airwax had already used Lamb's Respite. Wasn't able to save his life, so now Elements, 1,000 gold down. They've got themselves 2 kills, and again, gonna set their sights on this outer turret.
Yeah, they're setting their sights on it, but this time there's Corki. There is the Lulu as well, so they will be able to clear that one out. Not an easy push here mid lane from Elements. They're trying time and time again, but really the guy that's getting a lot of work done is on the side lanes. It's Mr. Rales that's pushing up. Even without any kind of ability to cross between lanes, he's just soaking up enough attention from Roccat to push out the lane, force somebody to come up and deal with it, and then Elements look to push. Haven't had a whole lot of success. They got that pick from that happening. Problem is, Roccat are running double TP, so there's always going to be somebody available realistically to go over and clear that wave. So are Elements. We just haven't really seen it, but we have seen today this really weird reversion to double TP. We saw it drop off completely at preseason because of the changes from teleporting to towers, no longer giving you that shorter cooldown on TP. But there's just been less fighting mid lane.
Well, there has been, in theory. Elements are finally going to take this tower down on their third real attempt. The zoning ultimate coming out from Steve. And of course, because he didn't fire the projectile, look how short that cooldown is. It'll be back up for a potential defense of this outer turret. Freddy also has no teleports available, so he cannot join in the fight if it were to break out.
That zoning ultimate is one of the funniest things we see, because it just feels like there should be just a projectile to follow it. It's the same kind of thing with, like I've been playing Jhin recently, and I just get the compulsion to finish his ultimate. Regardless of the lower cooldown you get for every shot you don't fire, it's the same with Poppy. I'm like, oh come on, I used all this time spinning up my ult. Let me at least use it. And then you realize actually the cooldown's significantly lower. Oh yeah, they shouldn't do that.
Well, there's a reason that those that can't do teach. Well, while we're here, Steve is in trouble. He's gonna get chunked out, throws down that hammer thanks to the shorter cooldown. Pins Airwax against the wall, might find himself one kill back. Airwax was unable to get the respite, and Steve survives.
Steve survives off the shields, manages to get Sprattle in just in time, and Airwax just went under the tower, couldn't stay alive. Was his ult not available at the beginning of that?
I think he was just pinned and then got knocked back.
Got it.
Yeah, I think so. We'll catch a glimpse in a moment. Dragon will be respawning in a little less than a minute, Stress. So, Elements and Roccat both at one apiece to position themselves. So we can get a second look at this.
Keep a look at the ult timer from Airwax. So it's coming up, but it's a while away. It's like a good 5 to 10 seconds away. So when aggressive, now it's up. So a little bit of a mistime by Airwax results in giving another kill to Steve, and that'll make Freddy say, oh man, that makes my lane that little bit tougher for the next few minutes, but nevertheless, Freddy is up to 2 items now, has the Sunfire Cape, has the Iceborne Gauntlet, so that's the I'm just going to burn you to death with ice build. That means you just walk next to somebody and burn them to death. It's kind of a frustrating thing to play against.
Oh yes, especially with all of the other tools that Freddy can play with, the Pella, the Chomp, stat stealing.
It's the same for Steve as well. He's got the same build. Same build we always see on Poppy. So they're just going to stand next to each other, let their clothing do the majority of the work. Of course, both of them have a lot of empowered auto attacks in the mix here as well. Just under a minute until Dragon coming up. And in fact, it's up.
Yep.
So,
I mean, information feed here is a little lacking, Stress. So we're relying on production to give us those Dragon.
It's okay, man. I'm still reeling after the jungle grab.
It's 10 minutes ago. You can move on. We do take stock of the situation, and it's even on gold. 500 separates. 2 kills more for Elements. However, Roccat are grouping up in this middle lane, and Ica, he's out for blood. Chaos Storm comes down. Will chunk tabs out. A good teleport in from behind. Steve is going to pin Extinct against the wall. Glacial Fissure's already been used. A defensive flash, but the spooky ghost is going to find Extinct. The verdict is wound up, and it will fall short. Extinct survives another day.
Whoever wields this hammer shall apparently get out of the team fight alive there for the likes of Extinct.
Airwax, what are you doing, my friend? You've denied the minion wave, maybe trying to alleviate the pressure on the inner turret, but now he's given up his flash and a kill to Ica. Eventually,
there we go.
Eventually a kill to Ica. Weird decision making, but it has allowed Roccat to defend middle and Freddy to push out bottom.
And Freddy pushing out down in that bottom side is the key really for Roccat. They need somebody to be able to just push Steve back, push Rales back whenever he's trying these split push moves, And then it leaves Elements in a really awkward situation where they're relying on a binding, a cocoon from Gilius. If Steve isn't there to engage fights, Elements can't really fight. Such a tough, tricky spot to be in. And that duel's going to take a while, because unless Freddy chooses to use his ultimate, they're going nowhere.
Yeah. It's going to be a gigantic wet noodle fight for a long time. But Elements, they are holding steady, still maintaining some semblance of control, still holding on to their outer turret in that middle lane, and gaining all the power that they need to theoretically start sieging, because Roccat actually have not done a siege. We'll expand on that in a second. Awax is going to use the Dance of Arrows away, no respite available, and 1 and 3 shaking his head on the player cam.
Airwax is having a rough game here. Like, he keeps either getting caught out or not having his ultimate available when they're trying to make plays. And that's one of the real kind of, weaknesses of a Kindred is if you catch her without her ultimate up, she's very squishy. They die very, very quickly.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. And of course, this game was a lane swap.
Yeah.
Traditionally, Airwax has camped for Betsy to get him ahead of his lane opponent. And because there was no ability to do that for Airwax, Betsy's fallen behind. He's down in CS, he's 0-1-0. He's playing a supportive champion, so yes, maybe that's also something you have to factor in. But for a guy that's had statistics that are very impressive all split long in the early game, it is a difference. This matchup.
How are they not tired?
I have no idea.
A lot of energy in the crowd.
I love it that the observers are full-on trolling. You guys have to come to the show. It's such a good vibe. So, Roccat, they're deciding to attempt the siege here. Teleport's available for Freddy. It is not for Steve.
From Micah, though.
There is Steve coming in from the side. No stun. Airwax is in trouble. The respite goes down as Betsy's knocked into the air. Wild growth used just to keep Betsy alive. And Freddy's TP'd into the middle of Elements, but he's not tanky enough to survive it all. The Chaos Storm takes Betsy down, and Roccat are running for their lives. They will not fight. Live another day. Elements continue to push down in a turret, and at 25 minutes, Baron is up. That seems to be the target. Look at all the pings.
Man, there are some really weird situations for Roccat in this game. Airwax eats the entirety of the culling. Betsy goes in on pretty much on his own onto Iker, and Iker just stands there and replies with the damage. From there, Elements are now disabled to take this Baron. Is there the potential for a steal from Airwax? He's still in the base right now, so the answer to that is going to be no. And this is Elements taking that first Baron of the day.
That's it, 25 minutes. After clean team fight, punishing Roccat. And that's kind of what I was talking about a little bit while ago in terms of the team compositions. The tools available to Elements just feel like they synergize better. And here's that replay.
So this is all from Rockat's push. And look, Roccat are pushing with fairly limited vision right now. So one of the real key things about stepping up to your opponent's turret, especially when they have a Victor, is you need to be able to see what is around the turret. They did not see Steve coming up into the fight. And it means Roccat had to back away. They couldn't kite back effectively against the culling. They just had to eat it. And then Elements caught up for the rest of the fight. And it's just Roccat trying to run and skipping steps at the same time.
Yeah, not working out for them. Dragon will be up in about 1 minute, we hope.
I was going to say, sure. That one's better.
And of course, we can see the Baron power play graphic on screen. Blue side Elements secured it, 2 minutes remaining. Nobody's running Runic Affinity. That's what that +0-0 means.
Yeah, one game we're going to have something that isn't +0-0.
One of those days will happen. And of course, the gold difference that Elements have earned more than their opponents, Roccat. Currently sitting at 1750.
We need an active Steve counter. That's what we need. Plus 1,800 Steves.
Yes, exactly.
Feels like there's been about 1,800 in this game, I'm not gonna lie.
It does indeed. But Elements, they've grouped up effectively.
Oh, no! Stop it!
I don't know what's available for Steve, and he's pushing the wave, Stress.
Okay. I'm gonna hazard a guess and say that is strike. Our observers having a lot of fun.
They certainly are, and Elements, they're setting themselves up well. Remember, Elements were 3-6 coming into today. They lost to Fnatic yesterday. And They're looking to pick up another win here against Roccat. They have all the tools to make it happen.
Oh, Betsy's in trouble. He's got caught forced to use his ultimate as well. Roccat having to back all the way away from this turret.
And they have done so. They're on the inner turret. Steve is winding up the verdict that will not manage to find a target though. Glacial Fissure comes out to delay Elements. A defensive flash from Steve, and Roccat seem to be holding. Elements have used a lot of tools to try and break into the base, but it hasn't worked on this attempt.
Hasn't worked this attempt, but they're going to go for attempt number 2. They have just used the Janna ultimate to heal up as well, so they are looking for siege number 2. 4,000 positive is the Baron power play that's active.
And there's not a lot of ultimates left. Freddy was caught. Airwax continues to play defensively. Respite and Flash are available. He's going to need to use it shortly. Airwax goes forward, puts down Lambs. Respite is stunned against the wall. Flashes only to die. Where did you think you were going to go? Roccat now running backwards as Elements are going to take the first inhibitor of the game just as Baron pays off. 5K, the power play, and an inhibitor.
This has been a really rough game for Roccat. From the early lane swap, that just Elements were ahead of the playoff, a bit of an unorthodox setup from the jungle and top lane. Elements have been in full control for the entire game since. Roccat have never really been able to get the ball rolling. Freddy hasn't ever been able to really split push against Steve, and when he has, there's always been somebody else around. So Elements have just been able to play out this game better than Roccat have, but both of them have been fairly stalled out.
You step back from the game.
Oh dear.
You know, if you step back from the game and you look at the bigger picture here, Stress.
Yeah.
Elements have beaten Splice, have beaten Giants, have beaten Roccat. They're on the verge of going 2-0 against Roccat. They are the perfect number 7 team because they've clearly shown they're stronger than the weaker squads below them, and they're struggling against some of the teams above them. I'm trying to be serious.
It's okay. I'm just inside. I'm like, they're still struggling a little in this game, but they're not. They're actually doing better than Roccat. What you're saying is true here. Is they are able to just move around the map faster than Roccat. This time, maybe they can get the engage again. Airwax is chunked out.
He really is. He needs to use that Lamb's Respite if he wants to try and save the world from devastation. I don't think it's going to work. Ica, the Monsoon will not be able to heal him back up. Now Extinct and Freddy, they feel they might find an opportunity. Wild Growth was used on Tabs, and Roccat, they defend the inner turret.
They defend it because seemingly the Steve signal wasn't in the sky. No teleport came out. There we go. He's busy all the way up in the top lane trying to push a tower, but what was the cost on the bottom side? Looks like there's another little skirmish going on down. Freddy's trying to hold 3 people.
Mr. Riles takes a couple of tower shots. Freddy's able to thwart the pressure. Around 1 minute and 40 until the next Baron is up. And Elements are continuing to put pressure on multiple lanes. Roccat, they hold for now, but it was cutting it very, very close.
Yeah, cutting it really close. Airwax holding off this mid lane as well. So Roccat, they, I believe, are going to be... well, they don't have that much gold on them. I was thinking maybe they have a lot of gold extra, but of course they recalled after the Baron. So for Elements, they kind of just resetting, looking for that next Baron of the game, setting up the vision control, going to try and get it, but they're competing with 4 blue trinkets, which means the Baron bait ain't going to happen.
Very, very difficult. And it's actually interesting if you think that we're 31 minutes into the game. That's not actually incredibly late. But we've had large periods of low activity. And the previous Baron is what really opened the game up for Elements. About 50 seconds before it spawns, hence the reason both Elements and Roccat are grouping up around the objective. I'm looking at pink wards, 1, 2. I count 3 in Elements' back pockets. Roccat currently got 2, and those trinkets will become available shortly. So Vision and Baron dodge.
No, that's Freddy. That's Freddy. It's not Steve.
Well, that's Airwax finding Ica. Gonna jump backwards. Extinct Unbreakable will keep them alive for a few more seconds. Airwax completely says, your problem, bro. Does not use Lamb's Respite. Continues to run away. Gonna put it down, I believe, shortly. Steve jumps forward onto Airwax. Has used the Keeper's Verdict to knock away Tabs. 3 members of Roccat are running. And a long-range dash. Steve jumps onto the back line. Tabs was killed over by Ica in the mid. And Freddy's running for his life. The last remaining member of Roccat. He cannot protect the world from devastation. He's knocked away, and Elements are going to close out this game. Pushing down Steve with a gigantic smile on his face. Elements win a convincing team fight, and in 33 minutes, take down Roccat. Big smiles on the faces of Elements. If you didn't watch the first 20 minutes of the game and you just caught that last 15, very impressive performance. However, it took a long time to find that opportunity.
Yeah, it was a game of two sections, really. You had the beginning of the lane swap, which Elements beat Roccat to the punch, then a whole lot of nothing for a while. A whole lot of just moving around, trying to find an opening in that middle lane. Couldn't quite get it. They finally crack open the middle lane, finally force Betsy back. And they were able to break through, but it wasn't the cleanest of games.
It wasn't, and you have to go back to talk about picks and bans. Lulu for Betsy, a guy that you put him on a champion that he has to then enable everybody else, but everybody else in the team are the guys that are struggling. Whereas Betsy's been the shining light, so putting him on a supportive thing, you're already weakening your primary carry. Then the Trundle, what was the goal? What were they hoping to achieve? Because they never really showed what he was meant to do in that composition.
Yeah, very odd picks and bans out of Roccat, and then they just were behind on the lane swap the entire time. It just seemed like they accepted that they were behind on the lane swap and were like, well, we'll just make it up somewhere else. We'll try and make these fights work with Airwax on that Kindred. And Kindred just going in aggressive on the bottom in a tower with no ultimate available. Like, those kind of plays just tore the game apart for Roccat. There was no real way of getting back into it after that.
Airwax was out of position a lot this game. And it's actually disappointing because Airwax started the split looking pretty impressive.
Yeah.
He was able to get a few ganks and he was able to impact the game relatively well. Unfortunately, he just didn't work out today. Pyrotechnics is standing on stage with an Elements solo laner.
Thank you very much, Quick Shot. I'm joined by, as you can hear, the top laner for Elements. It is, in fact, Steve, who had a pretty magnificent performance on that Poppy along with the rest of the team. But you snapped a 5-game losing streak. Congratulations. I mean, what does that do to your mental state after so many losses, picking one up?
Well, it feels really good because the morale was kind of down after all these losses. And yeah, it just feels really good.
It's definitely got to be a nice thing, man. And now you guys are sitting in 7th place. It seems like a very comfortable position for Elements. But generally speaking, there's still plenty of time left. Where do you expect this team to place towards the end of the split?
Well, if we want to go to playoffs, well, we want to try to go to playoffs, so we have to beat a few teams like the top 6, like top 4. I think we can get a win here and there. We didn't get one yet against these top teams. We only beat teams that are below us, but that's our goal. And I think if we do that, we can manage to get playoffs.
I'm looking forward to the next matchups, and the crowd always loves you, man. So thanks you so much for taking the time with me. I'll ask you one last question. This is about your choice of Poppy. We've seen so many top lane Poppies lately. It used to be more of a support pick. Why do you think it was so strong? Because you were just able to completely knock people into the wall constantly in that game.
Well, it's a tank that can deal so much damage and make engages and stuff. I like TPing behind teams with it, and the ulti is really fun. I don't know. I just love the champion.
The ulti is very fun. And there you go, man. Thanks again for taking the time to join us. Congrats on your win, and we will send it back the analyst desk way to break down that victory by Elements.
Thank you so much, Pyra. Well, sitting in on the desk right here to talk about that Elements win is H2K's Jankos. Thank you very much for joining us. I know it must have been rough after that loss earlier. What are your thoughts about it?
Oh, well, I think Malphite pick kind of screwed us a bit, because we picked 3 AD carries into Malphite, which is not good. Even though we had pretty well early game with Selfie, like stepping out super hard and dominating mid lane versus Perks, we were like 2-3k ahead, and then we went Nashor at some point, even though we didn't have to. Well, we went, and then I forgot I don't have smite. Like, I didn't look, I kind of focused on Nashor instead of looking at the smite, and yeah, that was the changing point of the game, I believe. So I would say I'm the reason why we lost, even though it's not exactly true because everyone could play better. Still, I would like to play myself about this game.
Okay, well, very I mean, that's a nice way to put it, that nobody else has to feel blamed for it, but you guys are still doing very well. Let's take a look at this game, though. You wanted to specifically talk about the picks and bans here in this Elements draft?
I mean, for me, it's kind of weird that Elements picked Elise so slowly, and then I guess it's because the Roccat picked like. Okay, so basically we have first pick Lucian. Right now he's super strong. I guess he's dominating every lane, so that's why they decided to pick it. Then we see Corki. It's kind of must-have pick, just because if you give out Lucian, you cannot give out Corki. Otherwise, the game is over in picks and bans. Then I would personally prefer to see Corki mid in this team comp, because I don't think Corki and Lulu fits too well. Basically, like Corki is a champion that can always do well alone, and then he always pressures mid lane. There is no pick that can deal with him. So I'm not sure why I decided to pick Lulu. It was kind of weird. I think if even they wanted to put Corki bot lane, they should have picked Victor faster instead of this Lulu pick. But they probably picked Lulu to not give Elements Lulu. So yeah. And then Elements had like super dominating lanes. Only Freddy had the counter pick. They always try to give the counter pick to Freddy because he's trying to pressure top a lot. But I don't think it worked out in this game. And also they lost lane swap, so there was nothing they could do at some point.
Not a lot they could do, and you were talking before about how in your game, when the Baron got stolen away, that it was, of course, a huge change in momentum maybe as well. Here specifically, you wanted to take a look at one of Steve's moves. We didn't do this on purpose because he did actually play this out really well. Let's take a look at this team fight. No, this outplay bottom, rather. We can run the clip out.
I mean, this is huge, right? Because Freddy right now is pressuring Steve super hard because he's 2 levels ahead. So Airwax has, like, he doesn't need to be there. Like, for some reason, they try to dive him, and then, yeah, Steve, like, beautifully outplays Airwax. And from that very moment, like, the game can snowball, because right now, Elements are, like, 5v4 on the map. They can regain pressure, they can put up deep wards, and they can, like, overall pressure the map, like, super hard. And also, from this moment, Poppy will probably deal with Freddy, you know? Like, Freddy was 2 levels ahead, and after this, well, he's not ahead anymore, you know, like Poppy will get all the wave, he got a kill, and yeah, there was nothing Freddy could do from that moment, and it's just so much snowball.
Yeah, not really the best idea to stand next to the wall against the Poppy there by the Kindred, but it was a really good play, especially like that they're going in together and then like, oh, where did Trundle fly off to? And then you just like need to get the one lasted in, and then you get stunned to the wall, and after that it's just like very tilty.
Yeah, and here we're going to take a look at a team fight that followed. ROC actually tries to do something, and Elements plays it beautifully in this one. They were, of course, very far ahead, but I did feel like I was watching Elements almost, because it just kept going forward.
I mean, they missed a lot of skill shots right here, but the fact that they played the comp so well is really beautiful, because like they try to peel for their carries, they stay with Rales, really group, they stay with Eika, and the backline just destroyed Roccat. Also, the late TP from Freddy was kind of big, but the thing is right here that at some point Roccat actually disengaged the team fight, and if the TP wouldn't be here, then maybe Freddy would be able to push side lane, right? But instead, they decide to TP, they decide to fight, they have weaker 5v5. Also, yeah, Steve is just too strong at this moment, and they lost, and they lose Nash, and they lose the game, you know. So next time, you know, make sure to kind of pressure the silence when you have like the peak to do it, instead of trying to force team fights. And that's also what we did against Fnatic in the like first game. We had Fiora, and we tried to team fight with her instead of pressuring the silence, which is kind of meh, but I think people will like pick up on that and maybe play a little bit more careful. Also, they had like, with Corki, you don't really need 4 people mid, like you can wave clear around, so a lot of mistakes in this game.
However, if you look at teams like Roccat, who's at the bottom of the table, we've said time and time again that they don't seem to be good at the team fights. Would you prioritize having that map pressure and learning how to control the sideways, or would you go back to the basics? Or is that a basic?
I mean, it just seems like overall Roccat seems a bit lost. I don't think there's actually anything they are doing particularly well. It just
early game, Airwax.
Yeah, Airwax is like the shining light in the team sometimes, and also Betsy is doing some great stuff sometimes. And this game he kind of gets stuck on the Lulu, and as you said, it doesn't really work that well with the Corki. And then there's just like no one really doing anything on the team, and it just all falls apart.
Yeah.
I mean, what they really need in the team is brain, kinda, because I feel like Betsy and Airwax are carrying them through every early game. Like every early game, they have pressure mid, they have pressure jungler, they're playing it super well. Even against Fnatic, like Fabian and Spirit got outplayed by them, you know. So as long as they have that, it's fine. But then they need a brain who would go from like mid game to late game to actually like make decision and do stuff, but instead they don't know what to do. Like Freddy always wants to split push, no matter what he wants to split push, he is always on the split pushing champ, and often they choose to fight instead of split pushing. And at the same time, yeah, after early game, like we see beautiful early game, like they are super ahead, like in every single game almost, you know, like lately they played, yesterday, today, and still they managed to somehow throw it. So I'm not sure I'm wrong there, but I think the coach of the team, which is, I believe, I'm so fresh, yeah, he probably should talk to maybe Extinct or maybe Airwax to control mid-game more as well, because what I feel like from mid-game, they just try to still do the ganks and still pressure them up by ganking instead of pressuring them up by like running out of the map, setting deep parts, doing the silent pressure that they should and stuff like this, you know.
We'll see what happens if they can alter that behavior past that, but Elements runs away with the victory here. We've got one match left on the card this week, and it's about between Splyce and Giants, who need to keep winning to keep any postseason hopes alive. Stay with us. There's more European LCS coming your way right after this.
Try to shot call in the mid game, okay? Just give your ideas, and then it's easier to shot call, okay?
Yes.
And like just communicate about everything, okay? If you have something in your mind, don't expect people to like do it automatically. Just say it, okay?
Okay.
Pins Airwax against the wall, might find himself one kill back. Airwax was unable to get the respite, and Steve survives.
No. TP. Kill the TP.
No Pinudon, no Pinudon.
Alright, good up.
No, I got it. Is that? Need to use it shortly. Airwax goes forward, puts down Lambda Spinnis, stunned against the wall, flashes only to die. 3 members of Roccat are running, and a long-range dash. Steve jumps onto the back line. Tabs was killed over by Ica in the mid. And Steve with a gigantic smile on his face. Element take down Roccat.